It is 8:11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 17th day of July 2026, and this is episode 1354 of Bitcoin. And with me, your host, David Bennett, bringing you all the news that you can use about Bitcoin and macro from around the world. I read to you the major news stories concerning Bitcoin and things that affect Bitcoin so that you don't have to. You can just enjoy your ride to work or lunch or back from lunch or on your drive home, depending on what time zone you live in. I got a beef with AI this morning. So I'm just gonna start out today talking about something a little bit more esoteric. Not long, but I got to rant a little bit. I went to Texas Tech University. I love that school. I mean, there's a lot of people that, they love their alma mater. They'll wear the swag, they'll put on their jerseys or whatever and parade around. But for some reason or another, I think that I might be a little bit more addicted to Texas Tech University than a lot of other people that went to Texas Tech. And it may be because I worked for Texas Tech after I graduated for like 10 freaking years. And there's not a brick on that campus that I don't know and know very well. I've walked that campus on so many occasions, not just going to and from class, just walking the campus, just to get out and go for a walk. But, I would pick new routes all the time to make sure that I saw every square inch of that campus. And it's a monster campus. It's a land grant college, so it was given a lot of land. Well, this morning, AI has come to tech. Not in the way that I wanted it to, but in a bullshit naming rights thing that is going to take the name off of the stadium, the football stadium, and replace it with another name. Now, I've been through this before, kind of. Texas Tech University Stadium is named Jones Stadium. Some people will call it the Jones. This morning, they announced that Galaxy, an AI and data center infrastructure company with a massive build out in Dickens County, which is very, very close to Lubbock County, they've announced naming rights of the stadium to Galaxy for the low price of $75 million over a period of 15 years. So that's $5 million a year. And there's a couple of things about this that I want to get into. And the first, notwithstanding, $75 million is, at this point, given the amount of money printing and what we know about fiat currency, is a pittance. For 15 years, honestly, they're getting it cheap. They're getting this cheap. So the other thing here is that when I first came to Texas Tech, it was just Jones Stadium. And then we had a chancellor named Chancellor Montford, who became, after he did a lot of really good stuff for Texas Tech, but he became the external vice president for AT&T. Kind of a big deal. Right. So after that, he worked a deal with AT&T, probably as part of him going to work as an external vice president, to give naming or to buy naming rights to Jones Stadium by AT&T. So they did a pretty big deal at the time, and they renamed the stadium AT&T Jones Stadium. They made sure they kept the name Jones. It's Clifford Jones. He was the third president of Texas Tech. He did a lot for the area. He was, stand-up guy and all that, but they kept the name. They kept it was AT&T Jones Stadium, and I still refuse to refer to it as the AT&T Jones Stadium. I would just always refer to it as Jones Stadium. Now it's Galaxy. And they're taking Jones' name completely off of the stadium. Because they used to actually have the signage on the stadium that said AT&T Jones Stadium. Not any longer. Not after this morning. And I'm a little upset about it because I really think that they gave naming rights away cheap. Really, really cheap. It's not like Texas Tech is some kind of backwater school. It's not. But it is what it is. It makes me sad. And what, really makes me sad is the amount of people from Texas Tech that are just rawing this. And I'm not talking about the chancellor. I'm not talking about the president or the athletics director, Kirby Hocutt. I'm talking about people that actually went to Tech saying, this is a great deal. It's not. $75 million in today's dollars is a pittance. It just is. And even if they got $1 billion out of it, I will still never, ever, ever refer to it as the Galaxy Stadium. It will forever be Jones Stadium. All right, now that that's out of my system, let's get into the news. First up, Stanford study flags Bitcoin market manipulation on Polymarket. What the hell's going on here? This is from Coinpedia. A new study by Stanford University and Singapore Management University says that Polymarket's 5-minute Bitcoin prediction markets may have given sophisticated traders an unfair advantage. After analyzing nearly 16,000 Bitcoin contracts over 2 months, researchers found trading patterns that suggest some participants were able to briefly move Bitcoin's price just before settlement. As a result, some participants could profit from it. Polymarket's 5-minute contracts let users bet on whether Bitcoin would end above or below a certain price. Since the result depended on a single chain link price feed at one exact moment, traders holding large positions allegedly placed concentrated trades in the final seconds. Consequently, they could nudge Bitcoin's spot price in their favor. The study identified 821 suspected manipulators who were estimated to have earned around $8.2 million. Another estimate in the report suggests about $1.28 million was effectively transferred from ordinary traders to these participants during the study period. Researchers also found Binance trading volume jumped to nearly 3.9 times its normal level during settlement windows. Bitcoin's price often snapped back just seconds after the contract closed. At the same time, they noted they couldn't directly prove the Binance traders and Polymarket wallets belonged to the same people. Therefore, they called the evidence circumstantial. The report found that the manipulation issue mostly went away when contract times were extended from 5 minutes to 15. It also suggested using a time-weighted average price instead of a single settlement price. This would make it much harder for someone to sway the result with a quick price spike. Polymarket said it doesn't believe any manipulation happened, but it did confirm that it plans to add average price settlement for some markets over the next year. Binance said it already monitors activity on its own platform. However, it can't control how third-party prediction markets decide to settle their contracts. The researchers say this isn't just a crypto issue. As firms like CBOE expand event contracts tied to the S&P 500 and NASDAQ pursue similar products, the same settlement risks could occur. This could happen if contracts rely on a single price snapshot. The findings also come as prediction markets continue to boom. According to DeFi Llama, Kalshi processed about $9.4 billion in June trading volume, while Polymarket handled roughly $4.3 billion. The expanded 2026 FIFA World Cup played a huge role, generating more than $5.4 billion in combined trading volume. Apart from all of that, prediction markets are also facing growing regulatory scrutiny, and they go through the whole business of the U.S. states challenging Polymarket and Kalshi. So if you didn't think that these betting apps, or actually let's just call them what they are, these casinos on your phone, weren't affecting Bitcoin price, you might have been wrong. Now, is it responsible for everything? No. But still, the writing's on the wall for everything, though. For everything, like what they were saying about the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. This is the worst kind of derivative because in some derivatives, actually I'm going to say most derivatives, even though that I hate them, and you know that I hate derivatives because I don't think that they're really more about price discovery. I think they're just more about some kind of gambling, but it is a little bit more sophisticated gambling. Derivatives traders, by and large, are not retail guys. They have access to extreme amounts of data. They look at stuff. They draw lines on charts. They at least they pretend to be sophisticated. Let's put it that way. But Polymarket and Kalshi, no, the great guts and feathers of the people that have that shit on their phone are not sophisticated whatsoever. They're just gambling. And I don't even blame them because the economic and financial environment out there is so rough that people are, they're like, the only way that I can get ahead is to possibly win a gamble. It's sad that we've come to this. It really is, but it is a reality that we're going to have to deal with. And here's what I wonder about. If manipulation starts cropping up to the point on NASDAQ and S&P 500 and anything else in the major markets, is that going to cause a backlash against Polymarket and Kalshi, the likes of which make the state's arguments against the very same look like, children arguing in a kindergarten class? Because at that point, you're really starting to mess with people that don't like being messed with. Only time will tell. Well, let's move on to Cloudflare. Out of Bitcoin Magazine, written by Juan Galt, Cloudflare X402 integration opens the door for Bitcoin and AI agent micropayments. This is pretty big, honestly. Cloudflare recently announced the launch of its monetization program via the Coinbase-led X402 machine payment standard. X402 lets AI agents pay for data online with crypto and has been gaining steam among the AI pilled as it unlocks more capable agent interactions with the open web. If you don't know, Cloudflare was founded in 2009 and has grown from a DDoS migration and content delivery network provider into one of the internet's foundational infrastructure companies. Let me pause right there. What does that mean? Oh my God, Cloudflare is freaking huge. It touches almost everything. And if you never really saw Cloudflare before, insofar that, I don't know, seeing it on your machine, seeing it in your web browsers, like it basically was operating behind the scenes for a very, very, very long time until now, because I can almost guarantee you that you're seeing the exact same shit that I'm seeing. Almost every web page now has a click here to prove that you are human. And all they want is a checkbox. A lot of times we were used to, okay, identify all the buses in the picture. Not anymore. I mean, we still see that, but a lot of these guys are just throwing up hey, you can't even get in here until you click this box to prove that you're human. And above that or below that, you will see the Cloudflare logo. That's the DDoS, the distributed denial of service situation that Cloudflare has been saying that they're protecting for a long time. Since 2009, in fact. But now Cloudflare is much, much larger, and they go well beyond DDoS. And like I said, you're probably becoming very much aware that a lot of these websites are blocking AI agents and AI queries by making sure that you have to check a box, which I don't understand, because how hard is it for AI not to figure out where to check that box? But that's another argument. What I'm getting at here is that Cloudflare is huge, and they are launching monetization via Coinbase's X402 machine payments. That's why this is big. That's why this is nothing to sneeze at. Continuing, the company, which launched publicly in 2010, had the mission to make web performance and security accessible to everyone, not just large enterprises. Today, Cloudflare powers approximately 20 to 23% of all global websites. It handles tens of millions of HTTP requests per second across 330 cities in over 100 countries, touching a significant portion of the global internet traffic. As a result of their adoption and security offering to large portions of the open web, Cloudflare's integration of X402 is a major development for the structure of the internet. Websites that are increasingly inaccessible to the massive data demands from AI can now sell that data to AI agents for crypto. Cloudflare's implementation only mentions stablecoins such as USDC, the OpenUSD standard, but the protocol supports Bitcoin on-chain and is actively exploring integration of the Lightning Network. Kevin LeFew, co-author of the X402 payment and AI GTM at Coinbase, told Bitcoin Magazine, "There's a major user experience issue in the way AI currently interacts with the open web, and X402, which is now under the control of the Linux Foundation, is trying to solve it." Quote, "Every API call requires an API key, which in turn requires a human and adds unnecessary friction. Our goal is to kill that API key," LeFew explained. And I ask, what could possibly go wrong? Popular AI agents, such as OpenClaw, often require API access keys to special paid web search services to let the AI agents access the web easily with the mobility that a human user would enjoy. Services of this sort are offered by popular browsers and search engines such as Brave.com and Perplexity, but who out there wants to be paying a subscription service on top of computer hardware and internet access, plus AI token costs to search the damn web? These services also require a human to sign up with a credit card for a monthly subscription, paying for access that might be blocked by the websites holding valuable data anyway via non-standard methods. A better solution is needed. AI agents need to be able to think about money and resource costs and need to have a computer-friendly way to make payments for novel data. For an example of this use case was recently demonstrated by an X account called Lightning Mode AI, which built a wrapper over ESPN FIFA data and had a AI agent pay for it in Bitcoin. The agent was then able to quickly place bets on outcomes on markets like Polymarket, which could potentially let agent owners earn their money during the Soccer World Cup. This example by Lightning Mode AI used an older implementation of the idea behind X402 called L402, a protocol developed by Lightning Labs to specifically enable Bitcoin payments for data on third-party websites. Denial of service attacks are also potentially solved by a machine-native monetary system for the internet. The fundamental vulnerability exploited by these DOS attacks revolves around the bandwidth and computing costs to answer a question or query from an internet user. The user sends a request to view a website. The site server must compute, resolve, and serve the website data back to the user. This has material costs at scale. DOS attacks send massive amounts of requests, often from malware-infected networks of machines, DDoS, that's the distributed denial of service, targeting the server resources of their victims. This kind of attack can, in theory, be stopped by simply asking for a payment from the user before spending the resources to respond to the user's query, but the payment must be cost-effective and fast enough for the user experience demands of the digital age. Protocols like X402 and L402 enable websites to paywall access to their valuable data while teaching AI agents how to pay for that access. No credit cards are needed, no user data explicitly shared with payment networks, no "are you a bot" captchas, no annoying account registrations you never use again, and no subscription service for web service API keys. You just pay for the data that you consume. This microtransaction market between machines is not new. It's been theorized by luminaries of the cypherpunk age like Nick Szabo and others, though it has, up until now, been found lacking. Szabo argued that the biggest problem with microtransactions was not just payment technology, but the cognitive transaction costs involved. Every time a user makes a payment, their brain needs to calculate, is it worth it? This also has a cost on users, which can probably be measured in calories. And sometimes deciding to pay a couple of pennies for data is not worth the effort. But AI agents change this equation, at least in theory. If AI becomes a new way for users to interact with the open web, then the cognitive cost involved in calculating the merit of spending pennies and even sub-penny values for data might be effectively abstracted away. Users can simply give their bot a budget with spending policies and let it do the best to use that money wisely. Whether AI agents can be responsible enough to safeguard user funds remains to be seen, but some experiments demonstrate that AI agents can be reasonably resilient at the job. Take Freza AI, for example, a 2024 era AI agent that held up against 48,000 prompt engineering attempts. Users paid to try to convince the bot to release funds in a smart contract treasury to them. If the bot refused, the bot kept the user's money, adding it to the treasury. Eventually, someone managed to fool that bot, but not after $50,000 worth of attempts had been made. With hard-coded spending limits, the risk of prompt engineering an AI into giving away its web search lunch money is probably manageable. The scalability of privacy-preserving digital payments as decentralized, censorship-resistant ways is also effectively already solved. According to LeFew, blockchains like Solana can do payments for 1,000th of a cent and settle it in milliseconds. Bitcoin's Lightning Network can also compete at the microtransaction scale, and other Bitcoin protocols like the eCash variants can be as fast as any internet packet, likely beating a highly centralized blockchain system like Solana. Victor Inatuik, co-founder of UTEXO, told Bitcoin Mag that they are actively working with X402 developer community to integrate Bitcoin's Layer 2 protocols via RGB as a payment option. RGB integration would unlock Layer 2 style Bitcoin payments as well as USDT on Bitcoin settlements. The X402 standard, according to LeFew, is designed to be fundamentally neutral to the payment rails involved, even extensible to fiat rails, though likely will be denominated by cryptocurrencies for the foreseeable future, and those would be stablecoin. Cloudflare's X402 pilot program is a great step toward this vision of a cryptographic money actively used as the native currency for the internet. Its focus on stablecoins to start is also understandable, given the powerful brand and adoption of the dollar, which keeps accounting simple. However, there are a lot of underlying risks involved in how stablecoins are used today that Bitcoin has already solved. For starters, most of the stablecoin volume moves on top of Ethereum virtual machine-style blockchains, which use an account model of public addresses. These are actively reused, creating long, detailed public histories of financial engagements for each user. This is abysmal for user privacy, and tooling to obfuscate user flows on EVM blockchains, such as VPNs for crypto payments, are not common. And as a result, AI agents and their users are actively leaking data that might expose them to targeted attacks from organized cybercrime, among other risks. Bitcoin, on the other hand, uses the UTXO model, where best practices lead people to create a new address for every payment received, resulting in payment trails that can be more difficult to track. Furthermore, Bitcoin's fast payment protocols like Lightning, Arc, or eCash often deliver much greater privacy benefits to users by moving value off-chain via various smart contract-related technologies. Last but not least, stablecoins are fundamentally anchored to the US dollar and its foreign policy. If Cloudflare wants to be a viable option for the multipolar world, it will want to start taking a neutral stance on money. The dollar, while still the most valued currency in the world, is starting to lose ground to rising powers in the East, while alternative geopolitically neutral currencies like Bitcoin continue to rise. Bitcoin might help Cloudflare maintain or even grow its position as critical internet infrastructure in the multipolar world. And that's the end of that article. This is the biggest news of the day. Is it good news? Is it bad news? Is it neutral? I don't know. I'm going to go with neutral because nobody knows exactly how this is going to play out. Here's what I think is going to happen. It's going to start with stablecoin. Bitcoin via the Lightning Network, eCash, Fedimints, Spark, you name it, the layer 2 stuff is also going to be in there. And then come the shit coins. Yes, there will be shitcoinery. It's a brave new world to reignite the idiocy that is shitcoins, which is why I've always said it's like Jesus. The poor will always be with you. In this case, the shitcoins will always be with you. We're not going to be able to get rid of them. I'm not saying that means that you need to embrace them. No, you need to basically call them shitcoins at any particular time that you can, but it's not going away. And if for whatever reason you're hanging or hinging your future happiness on seeing the death of shitcoins, you're going to be waiting a long, long, long time. Because I guarantee you this X402 is not the end of the road for internet payments. It's not. I'm sure Cloudflare is probably going to be looking at all kinds of rails. Hell, they might even hook up with Strike. And I'm talking about Jack Maller's company, Strike. They might hook up with any number of other things. I think later on today, do I have it here? Yeah, Visa is going to be Visa's in the news today. It's going to be the last story that I read. Visa is going to have some rails that Cloudflare might also want to use. X402 is not going to be the only payments infrastructure rails that Cloudflare uses. It's just not. It just happens to be the beginning. And we are right at the beginning, because when Cloudflare is the people doing this, you can be guaranteed that 402 payments are firmly and permanently embedded into the web. Makes me hungry for chocolate, because whenever I get nervous or a little, anxious or anything about, stupid shit like the thought of shit coins actually still being revived or having a little revival because of Cloudflare, I go to bitcoinbeans.co to get my chocolate. That's bitcoinbeans.co, because you need to invest in your mental well-being, just like you invest in Bitcoin. And chocolate, or cacao, is a nutrient-dense superfood. It's not a candy. Remember, I always say this, chocolate is actually food. The only time it becomes a candy is when you mix it with 5 pounds of sugar. Other than that, it is indeed a nutrient-dense superfood. It's rich in magnesium, antioxidants, and theobromine for natural energy and mood support. Bitcoin Beans crafts 1 pound blocks of 100% pure cacao grown regeneratively in Colombia, and you pay for it in Bitcoin. No chemicals, no fiat, no middlemen, just real food sourced with integrity and exchanged through proof of work. Go to bitcoinbeans.co. Grab yourself a 1-pound block of the best chocolate I have ever tasted. Use Bitcoin and as the coupon code. Receive a 5% discount. And by the way, it also lets them know that I sent you here from the Bitcoin and podcast via the Circle P. Circle P is open for business. It's where I bring plebs just like you with goods and services to plebs just like you who want to buy those goods and services, but you will be buying in a Bitcoin, because if you're not buying in a Bitcoin, you're not in the Circle P. So there you go. Go get some chocolate. It's really, as long as there's not sugar in it, it's really good food. And because it's food, you can use it in ways that you never thought about using chocolate before. Like you could literally use a nutmeg scraper or like a nutmeg grater, and you can grate some of this chocolate on top of, like just a little bit, on top of a cooked steak. Chocolate on steak? Yeah, because there's no sugar in it. You get the taste of actual chocolate. If you mix melted chocolate without any sugar into red chili and different kinds of chili, you start approximating a mole sauce. That's what chocolate is in mole. If you did not know that, M-O-L-E, it's chocolate. It has a lot of chocolate in it. I'm telling you, man, because we keep adding 5-pound bags of sugar to every chunk of chocolate we see on the planet, we have forgotten that chocolate is actually food, and it's good not only for your body, it's good for your mental health. Bitcoinbeans.co, use code BitcoinAnd. Bitcoin dropped in price this morning, and you might be wondering why. Well, it's because of Kimi. Bitcoin faces fresh headwinds as China's Kimi beats Claude's Fable 5 and GPT in coding benchmarks. This is out of CoinDesk. Bitcoin, Ether, and every other cryptocurrency fell on Friday, with many pointing to the Beijing startup that gave away a model that beat Anthropic's best at writing code. It's free. It's open source. It's also open weighted. So just be aware. Kimi. I tried it this morning. It's actually pretty good. I didn't use it for coding, but it's pretty good. So, and it's open source and it's open weight, which means it can learn. And it beat Fable 5. Oh my God. Oh, dude. Okay. So Moonshot AI released Kimi K3 on Thursday, and by Friday morning, AI and semiconductor stocks were selling off across Asia as traders dubbed it the Kimi moment, an echo of the DeepSeek shock that erased roughly $600 billion from NVIDIA's market value in a single session. What Moonshot built is a 2.8 trillion parameter model with a 1 million token context window, roughly 4 times the size of its previous version. It runs on a mixture of expert design, meaning it activates only a small slice of itself for any given task. In this case, 16 specialists out of 896, which is how a model that large stays cheap to run. Moonshot says architectural changes gave it roughly 2.5 times the scaling efficiency of its predecessor, according to the blog. On Arena's front-end code leaderboard, K3 scored 1,679 against 1,631 for Anthropic's Claude Fable 5 and 1,618 for OpenAI's GPT 5.6, taking first place and ranking top in 6 of 7 categories. Moonshot's own previous model sat at number 18. That is a 17-place jump in one release. On broader tests of general knowledge work, K3 lands behind the top Claude and OpenAI configurations rather than ahead, so this is a win in a specific domain, not across the board. The part that rattles valuations is the license. K3 is open weight, with the full model due for public release on July the 27th. Anyone will be able to download it, run it on their own hardware, and pay Nobody. Anthropic released Fable 5 last month, and OpenAI shipped 5.6 a week ago. Both closed and metered. The assumption underwriting hundreds of billions of dollars in AI infrastructure spending is the frontier capability stays scarce, expensive, and decidedly American. A free-to-use Chinese model at the top of a coding leaderboard is a direct argument against that. Meanwhile, Moonshot's domestic rivals took it the worst, with Z.AI falling 27% and Minimax about 16%. For crypto, however, the headwinds run through the tape rather than through anything on-chain. Bitcoin has spent this entire week taking direction from semiconductors. Last Friday, it rose 4%. On the day, South Korea's Kospi jumped 8%, and SK Hynix priced $26.5 billion of American depository shares. This Friday, it fell because a model release in Beijing made the same trade look expensive. There is, however, a more concrete exposure underneath. Bitcoin miners have spent 2 years repositioning themselves as AI center landlords, signaling, or rather signing long-term leases with model developers on the assumption that demand for training and inference compute keeps rising. That thesis prices in some kind of scarcity, and if frontier capability turns out to be available for free from an open-weight model that runs on less, the tenants have less reason to sign, and the miner to AI pivot that has carried several public Bitcoin companies loses its floor. DeepSeek's release was supposed to have taught this lesson 18 months ago, and the market's reaction then was violent but brief. Nvidia recovered. Bitcoin recovered. CapEx kept climbing. What is different this time is the position crypto occupies. In January 2025, Bitcoin sold off with tech because it was a risk asset in a risk-off season. In July of 2026, it is trading as a leveraged expression of the AI capital cycle itself, up on a Korean chip listing 1 week and down on a Chinese model release the next. The weights land in 10 days. Then the market finds out whether the benchmark holds. Okay, so the way that this is written, the language seems rather fearful. I'm not all that fearful. Markets and market participants have a tendency to forget a great many things. However, all of the Bitcoin miners that made a 100% pivot into AI are going to get hurt. They are going to get hurt unless American companies, specifically frontier model builders, build something that outcompetes Kimi. And they will eventually. How long will it take? I don't know. I don't care. It's not that big of a deal. My problem is more aligned with the fact that the market views Bitcoin as attached to all these different things. You know, at the start of the Iran war, it was linked to oil, and it still has a tendency to get a little shaky, you know, on ups and downs of oil price. But now it's being linked to AI for some god-awful reason. What I'm seeing here is that the market does not understand Bitcoin. Even to this day, after 17 years, retail, institution, they don't really understand what Bitcoin's purpose is, what it's trying to solve, what it brings to the table. They somehow or another, people like, here's what I really think. If you were to go man on the street with a mic, you know, microphone out in, I don't know, the streets of, like, let's say Singapore, and you ask people what Bitcoin is, I'll bet you that a double-digit percentage of them will say something like it's related to AI. And nothing could be further from the truth. Bitcoin has almost nothing to do with AI other than a company like Cloudflare and Coinbase are going to, you know, team up to make Bitcoin payments available over the web. But that's not inherent to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just simple money that cannot be printed. That's what it brings to the table. You can use it however the hell you want to use it. But institutions and retail still don't understand Bitcoin's purpose. And that's the saddest part about this whole story, is that we keep seeing Bitcoin linked as a risk off or risk on. Actually, we keep seeing it linked, or at least spoken about, as a risk asset. The only risk here is the United States dollar and the continued printing of it. Let's run the numbers. CNBC, and I can see that they are bombing the living crap out of Iran today. Brent North Sea is up 3 points to 86.76. West Texas Intermediate Oil is up 3.2% to $81.50. Natural gas is not a hedge this morning, which means that they're really bombing the shit out of stuff. It's 1 1/3 to the upside, landing at $2.89 per thousand cubic feet. Gasoline is up 3.5 to $3.39 a gallon, and Murban crude is up 3.5 to $80.46. Metals are mixed. Palladium is down 1.75, but gold reclaims 4,000 after a 2/3 point rise, hitting 4,018 and 1 dime. Platinum down 2 1/3. Silver is up barely 0.13%, $56.26. I hope to God you are not the one that bought silver at $115 an ounce. Copper is down a point. Ag is mixed, mostly in the green today. Biggest winner is sugar, up 2.9%. Biggest loser today is cotton, down almost a half. Live cattle down 0.7%. Lean hogs up 1 1/3. Feeder cattle moving sideways but in the red. S&P is down 0.8%. NASDAQ getting savaged, down 1.5%. The Dow is down 0.19%, and the S&P Mini is down 0.7%. And then Bitcoin got hit as well, $63,180. That's a $1.27 trillion market cap, and we can only get 15.8 ounces of gold with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 20,057,373.01 of. Fees are relatively high, 0.03 Bitcoin taken in fees on a per block basis. 45 blocks carrying 98,000 unconfirmed transactions, clearing at high priority rates of 3 sats per VByte. Low priorities will get you in at 1. Mining is back up to 904 exahashes per second. Let me pause, because that's something that I skated over in that last story in the first half of the show. The miners that pivoted to AI but kept their Bitcoin mining are going to win in the short to medium term. The miners that went all in AI are going to hurt. It's going to be painful. Many of them will probably survive, but the loss of momentum for the miners that pivoted solely to AI is going to be immense. And I said it weeks ago, without me even knowing that Kimi 3.2 or whatever the hell it is was coming. The miners that were keeping their Bitcoin mining infrastructure intact and basically adding data center and AI compute to their portfolio would win. And looks like I was right. Just saying. A reminder that if you want to support me and what I do, you can go to bitcoinandshow.com. That's bitcoinandshow.com. I got a free tier. I got 2 paid tiers. One is $5 a month, or you can just buy a whole year for $50 a month. But you will get, I try to do at least 2, if not 3 shows a week where I convert them into a small article that tells you kind of what the hell's going on with Bitcoin. It's got a link to that day's actual Bitcoin and podcast. But moreover, it's really just a way for you to be able to support me. If you don't want to do it directly in Bitcoin, you can do it in fiat at bitcoinandshow.com. If you want to support me in Bitcoin, just use any Podcasting 2.0 podcast app. And you get a lot out of that too. You get chapters, you get transcripts, you get chapter art, you get like album art, you get all kinds of neat stuff that legacy podcast apps will not give you. I use fountain.fm, but there's like 10 Podcasting 2.0 enabled apps out there for your podcasting pleasure. Go find one and boost the show with Satoshis, because all of these things have a Bitcoin wallet integrated in it, or can read an outboard Bitcoin wallet if you link them up. And it's really easy to do. Fountain.fm is one of my favorites. That's fountain.fm. From Don't AI Your Wallet, yesterday's episode of Bitcoin, and I got 500 sats from Lupin, who says, thanks again, my friend. Regarding orange juice, I would focus more on the acquisition of American companies whose owners want to retire. There are a ton of business owners by baby boomers that want to retire in the next couple of years. The question is, are there enough entrepreneurs interested in taking them over? See you on the other side. It's not a terrible idea. It's not a terrible idea, but I'll tell you, let me reframe this from looking at it through a different lens of agriculture. What if they were to buy farmland from farmers that want to retire, instead of letting that farmland fall into the hands of massive agricultural companies like Midland Daniels or Daniels Midland? I can't remember what it is, but like huge conglomerate farms, not letting that farmland fall into the hands of people like Bill Gates, who honestly has no interest in farming whatsoever. It's more for him. It's more about owning the water rights underneath there. And I don't want to get into that, but there's, several things that actually can happen with that, because there's a lot of people that want to get into farming. They don't have the money to buy the land. Hell, they don't have the money to lease the land. There's a possibility there. And I'm not discounting your idea. I think that that's a good idea too. I'm just saying orange juice could, if they wanted to, be an effective force to do positive things on this planet, and not, if they do it right, and not destroy their equity or their future longevity if they were to actually execute this right. And one of the people that I know, I'm going to be launched for saying this, but if orange juice hooked up with Tether, they could do the farm thing, because Tether, amazingly enough, is interested in ag. It's one of the reasons why I still like Tether and am not one of the people beating the drum for its imminent demise. 500 sats, another one from Lupin. Oh, wow. Thanks, man. He says, or she says, I don't know which. Thanks for another insightful episode. Time to bury BIP 110, but keeping the intentions in the back of our heads, since they indeed have a point. They do have a point. I don't like spam on Bitcoin either. And it's not like I'm putting on a cheerleader outfit for child sexual abuse material on Bitcoin blocks. I don't want it there either. But, and I'm not even that big of a fan of Bitcoin Core. But what would I be trading? I'm trading Luke Dash Jr. to be in control of Bitcoin instead of like a whole bunch of different people, some of which I may actually like, some of which I kind of don't respect. But I can't respect Luke Dasher anymore because he keeps calling me a pedophile with no fucking proof. And he calls people liars and pedophiles. If they disagree with his standpoint, they are a liar and a pedophile. There's no argument on his side. That is a closed-minded individual at this point, and I do not trust closed-minded individuals. 500 sats from WTF says, how was your trip? Oh, that was from yesterday. So I only got 1,000 sats for the last couple of shows. If you want to turn that ship around for me, go to bitcoinandshow.com. That's bitcoinandshow.com, or use Podcasting 2.0. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. Trump media sells Wall Street low latency access to Trump posts. Cointelegraph.com. I know what you're saying. I do. I know what you're saying. Why are you going to read this to me? This is fucking dumb. No, it's actually not. This demonstrates something. We'll get to it. Felix is writing this one for Cointelegraph. Trump Media, the company that operates the Truth Social Network, said Thursday it was launching a new paid-for API that gives Wall Street firms the fastest access to posts from the most influential Truth Social accounts, including President Donald Trump's. The API is targeted to be available to institutional customers from August 1st, 2026, and is aimed at high-frequency and algorithmic trading firms that require a low-latency, machine-readable feed, said the company on Thursday. Quote, "Markets already move on Truth Social posts," said Kevin McGurn, interim CEO of TMTG, in a statement. Further quote, Truth API delivers a direct, licensed, real-time feed of the platform's most market-moving truths while advancing our strategy to monetize proprietary assets through a high-margin, recurring revenue stream, end quote. Posts from Trump's Truth Social account have moved markets, with the most recent examples being his post relating to the ongoing conflict between Iran and the U.S. Other major accounts on Truth Social include Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and FBI Director Kash Patel. Companies have previously tried to scrape data from Truth Social, which is in violation of its terms of service, McGurn said, and, quote, "We're going to create a lot of friction for those folks that aren't coming to us directly," he added. That's the end of the article. That's all we need to know. If you don't think people aren't going to buy this, you would be wrong. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're somebody who is in the markets, and that's what you do, you trade, you want every piece of information available to you before anybody else can get it. And it doesn't matter if it's Truth Social and you think it's stupid. It doesn't matter if it's from Donald Trump or Eric Trump or Kash Patel and you think that they're stupid and you hate them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think. Because when Donald Trump does open his mouth, many times it has moved markets to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars, most notably in oil contracts, short and long, on futures. It's amazing. It's been amazing to watch the last, 139 days of this conflict, and just watch when he opens his mouth about Iran and when Iran opens their mouth about the very same thing, and watch how it moves futures contracts on the oil markets. It's insane. I've never seen anything like this before. So it doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. What matters is how the market's going to interpret the information and how it's going to react. It doesn't matter if the market reacts accordingly or in some sensible nature. That's not the point that these traders want. They just want to know before anybody else what Orange Man said so that they can either long or short the oil markets. And it's not just the oil markets, it's really everything. They're going to make a lot of money doing this. And what does it end up being? Ammunition for the opposition. I don't know why Trump is doing this. Because at billionaire level, how many boats can you water ski behind? It's the Gordon Gekko argument. Well, actually, not Gordon Gekko. It's Bud Fox out of the movie Wall Street. If you have not watched Wall Street, go watch Wall Street, the old one with what Charlie Sheen and I can't remember Michael Douglas. It's a good movie. I mean, it's, a little campy in some parts, but it's generally speaking a good movie. But Bud Fox is talking to Gordon Gekko at the end of the movie, and he's basically saying he's mad because something bad happened to Bud Fox and his dad and his, the company that he worked for, because whatever, it doesn't matter. And Bud Fox is like, how much is enough? How many boats can you ski behind? How many houses can you live in? How many cars can you drive? For somebody like Trump, money's not an issue anymore. It's something else. People, well, that's obvious, Dave. It's power. Is it? Is it? Maybe. Or for somebody like Donald Trump, who has a massive ego, is it just he wants to have his name on everybody's lips? It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that his opposition, and midterms are coming up, are going to look at this and they are going to have a fucking field day. The Republicans are going to lose both the House and the Senate. Now, we still got the judicial and the executive branch as far as conservatives are concerned, but I'm not all that happy with the way conservatives have been acting over the last couple of decades. Right? I kind of view Democrats and Republicans as basically, they're all wearing, the blue team and the red team. No, it's the purple team. Because they basically, when it comes to the things that really matter, they basically vote the same way. Everything else is just window dressing. I don't know why Trump's doing this. I mean, he doesn't need the money. So I don't know why this is, because this is going to be, it's like he's just shoved a nuclear bomb out of the back of a C-130 and parachuting it down to his enemies. It's not just like 5.56 ammunition. No. This is nuclear weapon grade shit that he's just about to drop right before the elections. And that speech last night that he made that was talking about how it's like he's calling into question the elections and the integrity of the elections. That's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And then you come out and you announce this. Who is this man's strategist? Because I could do a better job and I would take half the pay, honestly. Rowe Price has debuted a new ETF. Oh, thank God, we're saved. With Bitcoin and crypto exposure. Well, of course they did. Matthew DeSalvo out of Bitcoin Magazine. Asset manager Rowe Price on Thursday debuted its first crypto exchange traded fund. Rowe Price, which with $1.89 trillion in assets under management, is one of the largest U.S. asset managers, and it said that its active crypto ETF is the first actively managed multi-token spot ETF on the market. The ETF trades on the NYSE Arca under the ticker TKNZ, and it mainly gives investors exposure to Bitcoin and Ethereum, weighted 40.75% and 18.42% respectively, but it includes shitcoins like Solana, XRP, Hyperliquid, Dogecoin, and BNB. That's all we need to know. It's a fund that's mostly Bitcoin and a whole bunch of shitcoins. So, and I include Ethereum as shitcoin, so 40.75% Bitcoin. And what would that be? 39.25% shitcoin. No, more than that. I'm sorry. No, I screwed that up. 59.25% shitcoin. Yeah, that sounds about right. Right? Yeah, this sounds right. My online on-air math, nobody should engage in that shit. I'm just saying. Still though, this is a shitty product. And it's almost as if some guy at Rowe Price, the CEO, said, all right, Chip the intern up here. How do we get into crypto? How do we do an ETF that's different than just a Bitcoin ETF? I know. Let's do shitcoins. Okay, on to Citadel, which has invested $400 million into crypto.com at a $20 billion valuation. I never thought I'd see the day where crypto.com actually became something big. other than just something that I would point at and laugh. I can't point at them and laugh anymore. Cointelegraph has the story. Crypto exchange Crypto.com Thursday announced that it secured $400 million in investment from global market maker Citadel Securities. The investment comes amid growing institutional demand for tokenized real-world assets, including stablecoins and tokenized stocks. Crypto exchanges have increasingly positioned themselves as bridges between digital asset markets and traditional finance. The funding is expected to support Crypto.com's expansion across all asset classes, including tokenized securities and derivatives. Oh boy. Quote, "We are thrilled to work with Citadel Securities," yeah, I'll bet you are, "to continue driving the crypto industry into a new era of institutionalization." Motherfucker, you should be institutionalized. Anyway, the size of the opportunity in front of us is staggering. Oh, it's staggering. As crypto increasingly becomes the rails for finance, the convergence of traditional financial markets and digital asset infrastructure is an exciting evolution with the potential to further improve market efficiency, said a guy from Citadel and a guy from Crypto.com. That's $400 million to value Crypto.com, of all things, at $20 billion. 7 years ago, even 5 years ago, these numbers for something like Crypto.com, I would have never considered it a possibility. Amazing. Last up for the day, Visa unveils stablecoin platform for banks and fintech companies. Jason Nelson, Decrypt.co. Visa, the credit card company, has introduced a new platform that enables banks, fintechs, and payment providers to issue, hold, and transfer stablecoins through its own payments network. In a blog post, Visa and Visa Stablecoin Platform, or VSP for short, combines stablecoin minting, redemption, wallet infrastructure, and treasury management into one single enterprise system. Rather than requiring financial institutions to build their own blockchain infrastructure, the platform integrates stablecoin operations into existing payment and settlement workflows. As the name implies, stablecoins are cryptocurrencies designed to maintain a fixed value pegged mostly to the US dollar. At launch, the stablecoin platform supports OpenUSD, a stablecoin introduced by the Open Standard Consortium in June, alongside Visa's existing support for USDC and Paxos's USDG, according to Fortune. The platform, initially available to select beta users, also lets institutions manage wallets, transfer funds, and integrate those wallets with existing treasury and settlement systems, and includes transaction approval controls and audit logs. The news follows several moves by Visa in the stablecoin market, much of which they rehash in the next 3 paragraphs, which we don't need. What's not mentioned is Tether, again. And again, I got to say this, I'm not rah-rahing Tether generally as a stablecoin. I like the company, or at least I like the people in the company, I like some of the moves they've made, but, Tether is the thing that basically started the whole stablecoin thing in the first place. That said, one of the reasons why I still like Tether is that they're kind of not really jumping to comply with United States and EU and UK regulatory regimes. They're not exactly thumbing their nose at it. They're just saying, maybe what they're saying is, we don't need you. We've got the rest of the world to go after. You guys in Canada, Mexico, United States, the EU, UK, Australia, New Zealand, you can go play with yourselves. We're done with the West. That's what I think that they're doing. Because if that's not how they're thinking, then Tether is going to be replaced by fucking Circle. And that makes me feel really, 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 really bad. If I've got to select the lesser of two evils, and stablecoin, in my opinion, is evil because it is an extension of the US dollar, which is a fiat currency. And it's fiat currencies which are evil. It's not generally, I'm not saying the US dollar is evil because it's a US dollar. It's evil because it's fiat. The euro is evil, not because it's European, but because it's fiat. See where I'm going? I'm trying not to, hate on a nationality. And I'm an American, and I like being an American. I'm not thrilled with our federal government. I'm not thrilled with the U.S. dollar, but it's not because I'm one of these idiots running around going, down with America, down with capitalism. Fuck no, I love capitalism. Every time I see two kids behind an abandoned lemonade stand that nobody's buying lemonade from, my heart actually goes out to them because I'm like going, welcome to capitalism. It's a hard road, but it's worth it if you can make it work. So I'm not anti-American. I'm just anti-fiat currency. That said, I'd much rather Tether have continue to keep their market share ahead of Circle, because Circle is on their knees servicing the United States dollar in ways that only a whore can. And I really hate to say it that way, but that's the way that I see it. They will comply with anything and everything. And it's not like Tether doesn't. Believe me, I know what some other people are saying. It's like, dude, they froze. Yes, I know they froze accounts. I know that they do. Why I'm not all that thrilled with Tether either. But I got to go with lesser of two evils. And Jeremy Allaire, guy behind Circle, has never been a friend of Bitcoin, where Paolo Ardoino has. So here's my gut. My gut feeling is that, and it's what I've always said before, the Balkans, the Baltics, the continent of Africa, Central America, South America, as far East Europe as you can possibly get, and anything that's untouched by China, Russia, and the West. That's Tether's market. That's what I think that they're going after. That's why, even though they do freeze accounts from Iran or I don't care, whatever, they're still not really digging in their heels on U.S. compliance for their main product, which is Tether. They got a version of it that is compliant regulatorily with the United States and therefore Europe, but they're not pushing it. Not like good old fashioned Tether's being pushed by the guys at Tether. So I think that they want to that they are looking at Circle and saying, yeah, you go for it. You sew up that entire market and watch what happens as the United States prints US dollars into oblivion into the West, which is already showing massive cracks in the entire sociology of that system. And it is showing cracks, like big, major fissures. Whereas Latin America and the continent of Africa and all the other places that I've mentioned, they're all up and coming. It seems like it would be a better play to not spend the energy into what could very well be a dying system. And the West is, unless we do something very different, very fast, the West is in fact actually dying. So, and again, it's not because I'm anti-American or that I think white people suck. Yes, I'm white. I don't think white people suck. I'm just saying, it's like the weatherman. I may not want the tornado to hit, but it's better that I tell you that a tornado's on the horizon than if I didn't, because, I don't want people to think bad of me. But the West is kind of dying. And we're doing it to ourselves. These are all unforced errors that we've been committing for the last 25 years or 26. I really think the demise of the West started on 9/11. It's where I really, really think it happened. And I talked a lot about this. I've talked a lot about this, but the U.S. dollar and all fiat currencies, it's a disease. It's like in the U.S. dollar itself, the renminbi itself, the euro itself, the Great British Pound itself is not really the to blame here. And it's not, they're not inherently evil. It's been what they've turned into. And now these fiat currencies carry with them the disease of the people that took them off of any kind of solid backing that there is. And now these fiat currencies are carrying with them, as a vector, the disease of the people that do not value hard money. And as that non-hard money starts to impact markets and people and retail and commercial and everything else money touches, which is everything, that disease comes along for the ride. And then you wonder, why are there so many abandoned strip malls? That's why. The disease was transferred from people who do not respect hard money, which means that they do not respect the time of people on this planet. And if you don't respect that, you can't respect anything. And that's why you'll see a strip mall that's been abandoned inside of 20 years that looks like shit, is like, 10% occupancy, has no style, has no passion. You can tell the people that built it didn't care. That's why you see that. It just amazes me how money itself is a vector for the most evil, sinister disease that the planet has ever known. You thought syphilis was bad. You thought AIDS was bad. You thought cancer is bad. You ain't seen nothing like dirty money. That takes the evil intent of people and transmits it all over the world, all day long, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 100 years a century, 10 centuries in a millennium. And we've been dealing with shitty money for probably 1,000 years. At least. At least. But it was really bad since 2001. I really do think that 9/11 was the harbinger of all that we see today. I do understand that I'm kind of leaving that on a gloomy mark for your Friday. But if you got to take something away, I want you to take away this. Money is a vector. Bitcoin is also a vector. What do I mean by vector? It's how things move. A vector in mathematics has a direction and a magnitude. If either one of those two are not present, it's not a vector. So a vector in disease is somebody who's sick, who is ambulatory, or rather mobile, and goes out in public and spreads that disease. That's a vector. In the case of fiat currency, the vector is the money, because it has a magnitude and it has a direction. In the case of fiat money, it goes everywhere. It's got all kinds of directions, but it definitely has magnitude, and it carries with it a disease of apathy, a disease of greed, a disease of all kinds of shit. And it's not because it's money, it's because it's fiat money. So the next time you look at a British Great Pound, a euro, a dollar, a Canadian dollar, an Australian dollar, a peso, I don't care what it is. Don't look at it as money. Look at it as a carrier of the worst kind of disease humanity has ever seen, and we have yet to actually be able to name it. I'll see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.